Welcome to Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital, promoting prosperity and harmony to help you flourish in all areas of life. Join in as we explore the motivations and goals of real estate investors and how their ability to invest abundantly has provided them with the time and freedom to contribute to the world in a creative and thoughtful way. Now please welcome your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome. Today's guest bought a single-family home in Las Vegas in 2012. He never physically saw the property, had a home inspection, realtor and property management lined up. They managed everything until he sold the property in 2017. He 1031'd into 3 duplexes in Cleveland. He is owner and founder of Blacklick Holdings. He syndicated his first deal in January of 2019. Welcome back to the show, Aaron Howell. Pleased to have you back, Aaron. We had a really enjoyable conversation a few weeks ago. Glad to have you back on the show so soon here. So tell us what's been going on in your life in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you for having me again. Last couple of weeks, I've just been pretty relaxed. We went on vacation for a couple of days last week and went away to the eastern shore of Virginia. Neither of us had ever been. It was laid back, very rural. Pretty much no cell phone signal outside of the bed and breakfast we stayed at. Just the everyday work, 3 days a week at the hospital, managing properties via email. Last couple of weeks, trying to get things on track at one of the properties. But for the most part, pretty laid back the last couple of weeks.
It's always nice to have some laid back time. And you worked hard to get there. But let's go back to your childhood. We talked a little bit about this last time we were together. But I am curious. It's an unusual journey for the son of a coal miner to end up as a pharmacist. So talk to us about how that transformation occurred.
I think my dad was pretty determined that I would never work in a coal mine, just aside from being dangerous and hazard-ridden. I think he just instilled at an early age that I would never work in a coal mine, which the industry has changed considerably. The manual labor that's required is not what it used to be. And a lot of the stuff's mechanical and machines, and the amount of workers needed inside the coal mine are diminished greatly over the years. So as far as the pharmacist goes, going through school, kind of enjoyed science and math a lot more than other subjects. Also like history and geography too, but I just had a profession in mind going through with science and math. And somewhere along the line, I think I settled on pharmacy. And just by chance, my aunt was talking to the local pharmacist at the Kroger in our hometown. And she had mentioned her nephew was interested in pharmacy. And he said, we actually have a pharmacy technician job opening currently, or getting ready to be open. If you'd like to send him by to interview, we'd be happy to entertain him. So I went for the interview. Evidently, I did well. They hired me, just got into the job, loved it. It just soaked everything up. It was a really low paying job at the time. I joke with my coworkers now about how little I got paid. And they have a hard time believing it. For the times, it wasn't astronomically low. I think it was $4.65 an hour. But it was basically almost like an education too, because I was getting paid and learning at the time. So when I graduated pharmacy school, I had a little bit more of a basis for reference in certain situations that would come up versus most people who were just getting out of school.
So this was high school that you really got into the pharmacy industry?
It was my freshman year at college. I was looking for a job. I'm driving to school and taking 15, 18 hours a semester. I was looking for a job. And I think maybe that first year or so, I probably worked 15 hours a week, which at the time was enough for me to pay some bills and get in there and contribute as an employee.
Yeah, cool. So it really was your father who had a lot of influence in the fact that I'm not going to have my son working in a coal mine. It seems like you had a natural aptitude for academics and had a broad variety of interests, actually, academically, from the humanities to the sciences, but finally ended up really focusing upon the sciences. Another thing that interests me, as we were talking last time, your first investment home was in Las Vegas. That was your very first deal, and you did it with your mother.
Yes.
That's correct.
Correct, yes.
And it was as far across the continent as you could get. Not many people on their first endeavors are going to step that far out of their comfort zones to actually purchase a property in a state clear across the continent. How did you find the courage and actually the knowledge to realize that Las Vegas was a good place to invest in 2012?
Initially, my mom had mentioned it, and I just ignored it. I went out there to visit. I went and I'd climbed Mount Whitney with a guiding service, which is you could fly into Vegas and drive 3 hours and be at Mount Whitney, which is in California. My mom had mentioned, hey, grab some sales papers, some real estate papers, because the market out there is really tanking, and might be some good investment properties, which for her is outside of her norm. She's the most play it safe, stay with the norm kind of person you'll meet. So I was like, whatever. So I came back and she said, did you get any sales papers? I was like, no, what are you talking about? So she convinced me about a month or two later to go out there to actually take a trip. We have some family that live out there, like a distant cousin. We visited with them, but we took a day with a realtor who my mom had been in contact with the previous couple of weeks. We took a day and kind of went around looking at properties. The market there was so hot with investors that we had a hard time finding things. I mean, you really had to be there, and stuff would come on the market in a day, the same day, the next day stuff was under contract. Investors were gobbling it up. That was in 2011. So I went back about 6 months later, did the same thing by myself without my mom. But getting the boots on the ground with a property inspector, which the realtor helped us with, she helped us with a property management company also. And that initial plunge, we didn't know any better. We just thought, get a property manager, get a home inspection, get a good realtor, which is actually the correct formula for doing that, investing at a distance. The property manager, though, over time was great. I think that's where a lot of people can get made, or you either make it or break it with your investment. Having that good property manager out there encouraged me to go back 6-8 months later and do it again in 2012.
So you actually ended up buying more than just one single family home out there?
Yes, two of them.
That was quite a leap. What triggered your mother? You said she's usually the one to stay right in her comfort zone. What provoked her to say, let's go invest in Las Vegas?
Honestly, I have no idea. She was probably about 5 years from retirement, which further confounds me. Lots of times as you get closer to retirement, you'll get a little more secure, safer with your investments. But she was like, hey, let's go do it. And then I think we sold the property in 2017. The initial one, we made, I think, about 125% profit on it versus what we had initially paid for it. I sold the second property a couple months later and made about a 60% return. So did really well on both of those.
That's fascinating. I guess it was fortuitous that it all worked out there. I've had some other conversations with other people who also invested in Las Vegas about the same time, but they were very data driven. They realized that Las Vegas properties were selling for less than what it cost to build. From their reasoning is there was just no way you could actually lose it. It had to come back at some point in time, and sure enough, it certainly did. I'm sure you have learned a great deal since that time. Your next investment was also outside of where you live. Why did you pick Cleveland, Ohio?
Again, just following the markets. I had joined Bigger Pockets probably about 6 or 8 months before I ever discovered Cleveland. I was just soaking up material here and there. And then I think I went on the marketplace there on Bigger Pockets, and had seen some basically move-in ready properties that were going for $65,000, $75,000, $85,000. And I was like, wow. And so we went up to visit and found one that we liked. We had a property manager again in place. The realtor was in place. So we purchased the property. A couple months later, it took probably about a month for me to decide I wanted that property. We purchased it. It had a tenant placed within 30, 40 days. Us closing on it, and that same tenant, and this is 2015, early 2016, that same tenant is still there, pays every month, pays utilities. I think maybe we replaced some pipes in the kitchen once, and then maybe a hot water heater at some point, but it's been a pretty good initial investment up there. But I think getting back to your original question, the initial interest in Cleveland was the same kind of that had drawn us to Vegas, just depressed prices, a good rental market, boots on the ground. So that's what got me into Cleveland.
How did you determine that it actually was a good rental market?
Looking at some of the demographics, the Cleveland city limits a little bit depressed, a little bit of flight from the central area of Cleveland to the suburbs. But there was an area initially when I had seen it, Parma, Ohio, which is on the southwest corner of Cleveland. Nice neighborhoods. Some of the demographics as far as crime and growth initially attracted me. There's also a large medical community there, the Cleveland Clinic. They're opening up a lot of clinics in like in Lakewood, Ohio, which is on the lake northwest of downtown. they're opening up a large kind of hospital there, and they're shutting down the old Lakewood Hospital. And I think this is maybe a year or so out that maybe this hospital will be finished, but just a lot of medical community there. So driving my purchases around the suburbs.
Putting all of this together, you have been doing this since 2012. You've learned a lot since that time. What are the top three things that you're going to investigate and look at?
Part of my investing evolution, I think initially it was cash flow initially. But as time has gone on, I'm really looking for a good property manager in a certain area before I'll invest there, because just from experience, a property manager will make or break you, especially if you're investing at a distance and you can't manage the property yourself. I initially in Cleveland, and the property managers go through evolution too. I think there might be some ebb and flow depending on who the employees are and how well placed they are in their job. But I think the property manager we had initially up there just outgrew where they could be effective. Last year, 2019, we made a change in property managers, and it has made a huge difference as far as what we're getting done on our goals versus what the property manager's goals were. And I'm not even sure what the old property manager's goals were, but it wasn't managing properties very well, I think, as time went on.
So that's one criteria. What's criteria 2 and 3?
2 is probably availability of tenants, just being able to get tenants in place. You may get one tenant in place, but then how soon can you get that second tenant in place, a year or 2 years down the road? If you're going to have long vacancy periods because people are moving to the area, that's going to make being a landlord tough. You're looking for location essentially. And then 3, show me the money, is cash flow. Month to month, can I get the tenants? Can I outsource my mortgage payment to the tenants and then get some cash flow myself? Yeah, that's fundamentals kind of 101. I'm not necessarily looking for appreciation as much. Appreciation is like the icing on the cake. The cake's the cash flow. The icing maybe is getting a little bit of appreciation. Maybe you refinance down the road. I can pull some cash out, or you sell and you just have some cash then, cash flow.
What are the 3 things that you look for? Since number 1 is your property manager, what are the 3 things you look for in a property manager?
Responsive. If I email them, I'd love to get an email back within 48 hours, which for me is maybe selfish, but I look at it too. If my tenants are emailing the property manager, or if they're contacting the property manager about an issue going on, I want the property manager to be responsive, because the biggest thing that kills cash flow is turnover. If a tenant moves in and the property manager is horrible, most likely when their lease is up, they're going to bolt and go somewhere else or go with a different company. So if my property managers can take care of the tenants, or if I can help the property manager take care of the tenants and we don't have turnover, that's golden, because you have a tenant move out and you've got probably a month at least of vacancy. Lots of times you might get lucky and have a week or 2, but you've got that cleanup of the unit. You've got to do repairs, which sometimes are more than the security deposit. And then you've got to worry about finding a new tenant. And so that's expensive. So being responsive to the tenants and me is one thing. Just efficiency in system is another thing too. I look at, how are they handling payments from the tenants? If they're doing cash or check, that can get a little cumbersome. Do they do ACH? That's going to be streamline things. And then probably number 3, their size and scope of their work. I had mentioned earlier that the one property manager there in Cleveland outgrew their usefulness, or maybe they outgrew me. I don't know, but maybe they were trying to get involved in too many other things other than property management, but just seemed like they were understaffed and not responsive. But having the right scope. If you're managing 1,000 properties in a certain area, you've got to have the employees to keep up with it, or the subcontractors to go in and do repairs and things. And having that network for the property manager is key. And I think when I was interviewing that new property manager last August, that's some of the questions I had for him. Okay, how do you guys handle repairs and turnovers and things? So that's probably the 3 biggest things I'm looking for there in the property managers.
Where are you now with your investing business? Are you satisfied with where it is? Are you planning to scale, or are you planning to maintain it at the level that you have taken it to?
I've been enjoying things right now. For 2 or 3 years, I was building them somewhat and then consolidating. You take over a new duplex or a quad or a 6-unit apartment building, and there's a transition period. You'll have the property manager kind of wanting to make some changes or some upgrades, and naturally too, you want almost to make some upgrades to make the property more attractive to tenants. So, for about 3 years, I think I was dealing with that whole transition period. The last 6 to 8 months, I've been really just enjoying things, basking in the sunlight of some good property management and some good purchases, and just really enjoying things. I think somewhere down the road, though, maybe the next year or so, I may look to maybe adding a little bit to the portfolio and growing that just a little bit. But right now, I'm also looking into doing some refinancing. We've got some properties that I've had for 3, 4, 5 years that I'm paying 4.5, 4.6, 4.75 interest. And I think that the rates have dipped considerably here in the last couple months to in the mid to low threes for investment properties. So I'm hoping to take advantage of that. We have one property that I did a 2.99 15-year loan about 8 years ago, and I paid about half the mortgage off. And it just kind of hit me about a week and a half ago that I could refinance that and basically knock $1,000 off the payment per month, which, would be great.
Sure.
That's probably here the next couple of months, working on those, getting those shored up and getting our expenses lower. And then, just enjoying things. And then maybe down the road, looking at kind of expanding the portfolio a little bit.
You just did your first syndication just last year. Are you looking to do more syndication, or does that appeal to you anymore after having done one of them?
It was a lot of work at the time. There was probably about a month worth of high stress, a lot of emails, a lot of running errands, a lot of phone calls, text messages. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I thought I would. No, the investment itself has been doing great. We've paid pretty much all expenses for the year. We paid our taxes, we paid the insurance, everything. So far this year has been going really well. Last year we had that transition period, but things are going pretty well. I could do one again. I might bring in a partner this time to divvy up some of the tasks and see how that goes. If I didn't do one, would I lose sleep? Probably not. But I think probably here the next year or so, when I talk about expanding some, maybe going for some more single family or duplexes. But we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. You seem extraordinarily satisfied with where you are. It's just wonderful to see somebody who goes, life is good and life is wonderful, and I don't always have to be shooting for the moon. Life is just too short, and you need to take each day as it comes. As I sit here listening to you talk, I can just hear the pleasure and the satisfaction in finding fulfillment in what you have sought out to do. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a good place to be. Aaron, tell our viewers and listeners how they can connect with you, because you certainly have some knowledge, experience, and wisdom to share with our viewers and listeners.
Okay. You can go to my personal website. It's Blacklick Holdings. Actually, Blacklick Capital, .com. So BlackLick Capital.com. You can find me on BiggerPockets, LinkedIn, Facebook, those avenues, like social media. Also email me if you like, Howell, 7, and that's AHOWEL, 7 at hotmail.com. I'm pretty responsive as far as getting back to emails. As I've been on podcasts before, I'll answer you back. It may not be the first day or so, but I'll definitely get back with you if you have any questions.
One last question. Where did the name of your company come from?
So I grew up in southern West Virginia. Again, son of a coal miner. The road I lived on was Blacklick Road. So in southern West Virginia, creeks or rivers or whatever, small rivers, creeks, are known as licks.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
So strange. I don't know where that came from, but I lived on Blacklick Road. Strange name.
I thought it might be a coal miner term, but it's
well, who knows? And maybe there was a coal mine up the road or something from where I grew up. I don't know of one, but no, just a small creek in West Virginia.
Huh. That's interesting. They here in my part of Appalachia, I've never heard the term lick in terms of creeks, but they don't call them creeks here either. My mind has gone blank here. I can't even remember what they call them, but they don't call them creeks. But I call them creeks because I'm from the West. So, well, Aaron, it has been a pleasure talking with you again, and thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm so pleased to see you enjoying the life you put together there. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. For more information, as well as access to our free ebook on enhancing your well-being through real estate investing, be sure to connect with us at steedtalker.com. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine and enhance the humane treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. Connect with us at steedtalker.com.